Dale Comstock. In this segment, I'm going to talk about principles of proper mindset as it concerns survival. Okay, in this realm, what I'm going to talk about here is really kind of a physical confrontation and getting the proper mindset. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is survival learning skills. Fighting, regardless if it's in self-defense or for sport, requires a physical effort. However, the psychological aspect is just as important as the physical. It's 50-50. In order to become proficient in the use of physical skills, we must first master the skill of learning and applying the cognitive processes to our training. Performing under stress in extreme circumstances is also important, as well as a judicious application of tactics and techniques. We must resolve our death, mental awareness, and attitude. All of these traits point to one common denominator, which is readiness. Readiness is the single most important element of proper mindset in hand combat. The following tenets should be adopted as a common denominator for a person's survival imperatives. Surprise. The first principle of offensive and defensive combat is surprise. By striking the enemy with a preemptive attack, we gain strategic surprise. By countering with the indignant anger and total resolve, we gain tactical surprise. In other words, even if the guy or the opponent gets a jump on us and overwhelms us initially, by us fighting back with indignant anger and aggressively, we can turn the tide. The unexpected is disconcerting to the adversary. To my point, again, a good counter offense will a lot of times take your adversary out of his game. A disconcerted person is momentarily less in charge of his own thoughts than just before or after. It is in this fleeting moment that our components will stall or freeze, called stress shock phenomena, and we afford the opportunity to finish them or reverse the momentum that they have achieved from their attack. The second principle, alertness. To some extent, it's an inherent personality trait, but it can be nonetheless developed and improved. We live in a perilous and feral world, and if we are to accommodate to it and live at ease in it, we must sharpen our senses and consider our personal security. So we got to be alert in everything that we do. If you reference some of the other videos I did on the OODA loop, talks about the different colors for readiness. Recommend that you take a look at that. Decisiveness. To ponder is quite possibly to perish. Short of extensive personal experience, which most people do not have, the best way to cultivate tactical decisiveness is through hypotheses, the what I do scenarios. What if it? By thinking tactically, we can more arrive at a correct tactical solution. So in other words, if we're thinking about what would I do in this scenario, and you start developing a solution, it may not be the right solution, but it's a solution. At least you have something on your shelf, on your mental shelf, that you can pull down and implement rather than trying to solve the problem in the middle of combat. Following up with practice, even theoretical practice, tends to produce confidence in our solutions, which in turn makes it easier and thus quicker for us to react and to make a decision. Fourth skill is aggressiveness. The best defense is a good offense. Victory is not always guaranteed the strong and to the swift, and there is no such thing as defending non-aggressively, unless you intend to block and counter your opponent's every move until he is exhausted to fight. Although the intended victim may be smaller than the attacker, the tables can be turned with the application of violent indignation. In the wild, when you look at a predator attacking another predator, the reaction is from the one being attacked is not to just defend. Instead, they counter with an aggressive counterattack. They fight with all they have to win. Their survival actually depends on it, and we need to have the same type of mindset. All right, the fifth element is speed. The perfect offense is one that is over before the loser really understands what is going on. The perfect defense is a counterattack that succeeds before the assailant realizes he has bitten off more than he can chew. Speed is the absolute essence of any form of combat. An overwhelming force is of no importance if it is not brought to bear before it's preempted. Do unto others as they would do unto you, but do it first. Coolness, or level-headedness. Another term I like to use is maintain your poise when all else is in disequilibrium. Run the situation, don't let the situation run you. Keeping a level head under pressure is not always an easy thing to do, but it's paramount if one is going to control the situation. When we find ourselves in a stressful and dynamic situation, such as a fight, the tendency is for us is particularly if we are defenders, is to lose situation awareness. We get this tunnel vision, and it's during this moment that we must remain in control of our mental faculties. If our focus is narrow, then our opponent's surprise and reaction time and reflexes are diminished. So there's actually a physiological thing that happens to us under stress, and it all has to do with the fight or flight syndrome. We'll talk more about that later. Tenacity. All right, the last one. Correction. Ruthlessness. Number 7. If you're going to fight, then by all means fight to win. Nice guys finish last. Sometimes they don't finish at all. Last one is tenacity. Never quit in spite of the odds. It's imperative that the will to win is imposed through a game and unyielding attack. The principle is the most single important element, and without it, the combatant is largely relying on luck to win. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, tenacity can endure longer than any other human quality. When all the combatants are fatigued, debilitated, and all other traits are neutralized, tenacity can tip the balance in favor of the man who tends to win at any cost. And I have a lot of experience in that from the boxing and MMA world and kickboxing world. You know, a lot of times my opponent was more skillful than me, maybe even in better condition. Not often, but sometimes they were better physically than me. And as long as I could keep myself from being knocked out, I would continue to fight as hard and aggressively as I could. And eventually what would happen was the tide would turn into my favor because, mentally I would outlast my opponent's body. And he didn't have the same mental attitude I did 99% of the time. So, and I've won most of my fights that way. So anyways, these are just some food for thought, some tools to put in the toolbox to enhance your survivability and give you something to think about and make that part of your life's philosophy in the for the future, whether it's combatives training or anything else that you know in life. These traits they're kind of universal. The information I just provided you came out of the 3rd Special Forces Group Combatives Manual, which I wrote, and so. Basically these are my thoughts put on paper, and I'm now going to share them with you.